Yo, what's going on everyone? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to the next YouTube video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a build for the Grandmaster. This week, the Knifeful weapon is the Wild Style, a very popular weapon, so I'm guessing that a lot of you guys are going to head over into LFG. So this is going to be the video for you. This build is designed to not only be a fun build, but also a build that can deal with anything that the GM throws at you. No matter what your teammates bring, you're going to be able to deal with all champions, and also all the enemies that you encounter in this GM, so you can always guarantee that you get that GM clear and get your weapon. For this build, we're going to be using some of those new mods, so if you're looking for a build with those, then you're in the right place. So now before we start the build, the one thing that you are going to need for this build is going to be the Dragon Spread rocket launcher. As long as you have this weapon, the build is pretty much going to work. So that's what you need, and now let's get into it. Let's start off with the weapons. So since we already mentioned it, let's talk about the Dragon Spread. First of all, this thing is an ignition machine, and now with the new mods, it means ignitions clear entire rooms used by themselves. This is gonna be the main weapon that we're gonna use to deal with champions. We fire at a champion, the champion ignites, it takes a lot of damage, and also kills anything that's close by. And with the new mods, it is a lot. Those ignitions are no joke, they do increase damage, and that damage is dealt in an increased blast radius. So you're going to be hitting a ton of things with ignitions, and if you happen to be radiant while firing the rocket, then this thing is even going to break barriers. With this GM, enemies love to group up, so having something like this that can make ignitions very easily is going to be fantastic. Just shoot it at a big enemy, that's pretty much it. Whether it's a yellow bar or a champion, most of the time there's going to be a lot of champions, so you can just fire it at the champion. Or even if you see a big group of enemies, just fire it at the ground, and you'll just continue to apply Scourge, kill enemies, and just do ignitions. It's also going to put in some pretty good damage against the boss at the end, with all those ignitions it's going to cost. And this thing builds up your light damage meter bar really quickly. So the Dragon Spread is just going to be our answer to any big enemy or any groups of enemies. Now for the energy weapon, you want to use a pulse rifle. As long as it's a pulse rifle, it'll be okay. I would recommend one that's solar or arc, since those are the surges in the strike. So I was using the battler, since it has a bit of synergy with incandescent. So if you have one with incandescent, I would recommend that. But if you have a good arc one that you like, then go with that one. Both of them are going to work. We're mostly just using this to break those barriers. Now for a kinetic weapon, I would recommend a fusion rifle with shield clip. It doesn't have to be the Riptide, it could be any fusion rifle with shield clip that you have. This is gonna do two things: gives another way to stun overloads, and it also builds up our darkness damage meter. Riptide got the job done just fine, but like I said, it doesn't really have to be this one. As long as it's a fusion rifle with shield clip, it'll be fine. Now for the super that you want to run with this build is gonna be the Golden Gun, since we're gonna be pairing it up with the Celestial Nighthawk for just some easy champion kills. Now for our melee and our grenade, we have the classic stasis combo, the Dust Field plus the Withering Blade. There is some overloads in the strike, so this is gonna be our main way to stun them with our abilities. Whether it's our melee or our Dust Field, we're gonna be able to stun those overloads. Both our abilities being stasis also means that we're gonna be building up our darkness damage meter with them, especially the Dust Field. If you throw a Dust Field into a group of enemies or a champion, it gives you so much darkness energy. Our abilities are going to be the main way that we get darkness energy, so we can spam that transcendence. Now for the aspects, we're changing it quite a bit this week. First of all, we have Gunpowder Gamble. Whenever we defeat targets with abilities, elemental debuffs, or solar weapons, it will charge up an improvised explosive that when we throw it, it causes an ignition. And this thing is going to be really good in this GM, since again, the enemies are so close together, and our ignitions are all going to be buff, meaning that they hit a bigger area with more damage. Our Gunpowder Gamble is basically supercharging this GM. We throw it into a group of ads, shoot it, and you just watch all the ads disappear. It is beautiful the things that you can do with the Gunpowder Gamble. One thing that I will tell you is that if you don't feel very comfortable shooting the Gunpowder Gamble out of the air, maybe you're new to using Gunpowder Gamble, that's okay. You can just throw it at enemies, kind of like a regular grenade. It will blow up after a couple of seconds, so you don't have to go for the shooting out of the air play every single time. Now for the second aspect, we're running Ascension. Ascension is going to make us amplify whenever we use our class ability in the air, and this is going to do a bunch of different things. First of all, it's going to give us 30% damage resistance, thanks to the seasonal mod. It's going to jolt any enemies that are around whenever we activate it, and on top of it, it can even stun overload champions in case they rush you. If you ever see like an overload champion rain at you, just activate Ascension, and you'll not only get that damage resistance, but you will also stun it. And lastly, whenever we're amplified, we're also going to be getting our class ability back faster. We get it back so fast that before our amplify runs out, we're going to be ready to amplify again if we want to right away. So it pretty much gives us 100% uptime on that amplified, not only for yourself, but for your teammates as well. So you can use it defensively, offensively, but you're always going to have that extra damage resistance thanks to amplify. It's going to be really good. I don't see Ascension enough, I think, but it's going to work pretty well with this build. Now moving on to the fragments, the first one we have is going to be the Facet of Hope. While we have an elemental buff, our class ability is going to regen faster. This fragment right here is what lets us spam Ascension and pretty much gives us that 100% uptime on amplified. So this one's a must have. Next up we have Facet of Solitude, landing rapid precision hits with a Severing Blast. This is going to be really good. Our pulse rifle pretty much procs it every time on a champion or on a bigger enemy. This one's going to be pretty good because it will make those bigger enemies a bit less of a threat. Next up we have Facet of Sacrifice. While we have an Arc, Solar, or Void ability buff, our ability Final Blows will give us bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. And since we're going to be amplified all the time, we're basically always going to be getting some of that bonus Darkness Transcendence energy, meaning that we can pop our Transcendence just more often. Another goal of this build is just going to be so we can spam Transcendence. So that's why we have all these things that are going to make it so we just get a ton of Transcendence energy. Next up, we're going to have Facet of Balance. This is going to give us back some melee or grenade energy depending on what we defeat targets with. Since we have a lot of light damage, we're mostly going to be getting melee energy, but it's also going to be helping our grenade as well. Next up, we're going to have Facet of Dawn. Whenever we hit something with our power melee hit, it's going to make us Radiant. This is going to be pretty good. We're going to be spamming lots of melees, so we're always going to be able to make ourselves Radiant. Radiant's going to be pretty great. We get extra damage on all our weapons, and our rocket is going to be able to break barriers whenever we are Radiant. And the last fragment that we're running on this build is going to be the Facet of Ruin, which is going to increase the area of effect of our solar ignitions. So our solar ignitions are going to have an even bigger blast radius, and it also affects whenever we freeze a target. So if we freeze something with a choke clip, or with our melee or grenade, whenever we shatter them, they'll do more damage to not only that enemy, but also enemies around them. So this is going to be helping both our stasis and our ignitions. So now for our exotic, we're running the Celestial Nighthawk, which is going to be the safe option. There's nothing really wrong with the Celestial. We're going to be able to just destroy champions with it. It's hard to say no to an instant delete button on a champion, especially when you're running with the LFG. Maybe your teammates are distracted with other enemies and they can't help you with the champion. That's when you pop the Celestial Nighthawk and then just make it disappear. That's pretty much the reason why you want to run the Celestial Nighthawk. And now let's actually move on to taking a look at the mods that we're running on this build. First of all, let's start off with Helmet, and we're going to have a heavy ammo and a special ammo finder, which is not something we usually do, but we definitely want to have as many rockets and our fusion up all the time. So we have finders for both. So let's start off from the Helmet, and we're going to have a heavy ammo finder as well as a special ammo finder. This is not something that we do too often, but since we're going to be spamming our rocket, we definitely want to have as much heavy as we can get. And it's also nice to have a bit more special, just so we can always use that choke clip. Now for the gauntlets, we're going to have Momentum Transfer, Focusing Strike, and Impact Induction, just so we can reduce our ability cooldowns. For the chest piece, we have Double Arc Resistance, because you definitely want Arc Resistance for this. And then I have a Harmonic Reserves, to increase our reserves on our rocket. You don't need this one, you can go with a third Arc Resistance if you think that you need it, but I think 2 arc resistances and reserves is probably like the best variation of this. For our boots, we're going to have a scavenger so we can get more ammo for our rocket, and then invigoration and absolution so we can get our abilities back faster whenever we pick up some more flight. And lastly, for our class item, we're going to have Proximity Ward, Empower Finish, and Utility Kickstart. Utility Kickstart is going to be one of the few mods that's actually going to work whenever we activate our Ascension. and these two are going to be for finishing. We get an overshield, and we also get armor charge, so we can use utility kickstar a little more often. Now for the artifact, we have counter energy, radiant orbs, galvanic armor, solar fulmination, and lastly shield crush. The mods are basically going to help us get those abilities back faster. Armor is going to give us that 30% damage assist whenever we are amplified, and solar fulmination gives us those big ignitions. And that's going to be it. That's going to be the end of the build. I have told you everything about the build. As always, I'm going to leave a link in the description and in the comments if you guys want to try out the build. And if you do end up trying it, make sure that you come back and tell me what you guys think about it. I definitely like this one because it's just really fun. Just becoming a helicopter hunter that's very hard to kill is very fun. And then the ignitions are just beautiful. There's just something that goes off in my brain every time I see an ignition go off. And all the numbers popping up on the screen just make it even better. But yeah, this is a very fun build. Hopefully you guys like it. I played with different versions of the build. I changed a couple of things, but I ended up settling on this one. I like that this kind of ended up being like a fire and ice build. Definitely leaning more towards fire though. But I still kind of like the team that we got going with this build. One thing that you want to remember is to keep spamming your class ability. You always want to be amplified, and you're always going to have it up, so might as well keep spamming it. But with that, we're going to end today's video. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.